Welcome to Meanwhile at the Museum, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes with the people, stories, and shenanigans that make Cincinnati Museum Center what it is. I'm Cody Hefner, and I'm joined today by Tim McQuillan, our Senior Director of Public Safety and Security. Welcome, Tim.
Hello.
Have you inherited any cool nicknames like Mick, Quill the Thrill, Big Time Timmy Jim?
No, not that I can remember.
Are you in the market for one?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I had one in high school that I don't really tell anybody about, but now that I've brought it up, I've probably got to tell everybody.
Yeah.
People in high school used to call me Quilly Manilly. So that was usually the pretty good one that I can remember.
That's amazing. Are you a big Blame It on the Rain fan?
Not necessarily.
Oh. I'm very sorry for all the monthly emails.
But that's okay. I mean, Milli Vanilli, Quilly Manilly, Now you'll just have to subtly change it on your next email to see if anybody notices.
I'm very much going to. Anytime we send out, we send out a monthly all-staff email at the beginning of the month, and anytime it's raining, on that day, I will include the Milli Vanilli gif of Blame It on the Rain. But now, I'm going to say Quilly Vanilli because that's fantastic.
No, Quilly Manilli.
Quilly Manilli?
Yeah, Quilly Manilli, yeah. So it's almost like Milli Vanilli, but it's Quilly Manilli. Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
All right, good. All right, so welcome. Thanks for joining us. How long have you been with the Museum Center? When did you join?
End of January, so it'll be about 6 months.
Okay, so 6 months. I know a little bit about your background, but every time I talk to you, it peels back another layer.
Yeah, so as people talk to me, I usually have the reputation of, dude, this guy's worked everywhere. Where hasn't he worked?
It really does sound like that.
Before I came here, I was the K-9 officer for the Kenwood Town Center. I worked for a contract security company, and I got to take home the dog, and the dog was looking for firearms and explosives inside of the mall as mall patrons would walk through the mall. So he was trained to smell explosives, firearms. He was on 20 different odors that he could recognize. He was so finely tuned that the thing that kind of blew me away is in his training, I put a .22 caliber shell in a Tic Tac container with holes in it so the smoke could come out, and a very minute amount of gunpowder's in a .22 caliber shell, right? I tossed it or threw it in the middle of a softball field, let it sit there for 5 minutes. 32 seconds later, after the 5 minutes had elapsed and let the smell come out a little bit, it only took him 32 seconds to find it in the middle of a field. He was sitting right next to it.
That's wild.
So, I mean...
That's incredible.
He could find it. In the year and a half I was there, we found probably 450 weapons, I believe.
No kidding.
Documented weapons.
On
a person.
Wow.
In the building. So people carry their guns everywhere. But it could be, not necessarily them carrying their weapon. If they had handled their gun or weapon prior to coming to the mall, maybe they went to the range earlier in the morning, or if they store their firearm in their closet in a safe, the safes aren't airtight, so the smell would come out. So now it's all over your clothes. So now he's going after you as soon as you walk past him.
Wow.
And then, the series of questions starts. Oh, do you have firearms at home? Have you handled one recently? Stuff like that. And most of the time, they didn't necessarily have it on them, but they had handled one.
What is the dog's response? What is it?
So
what does it do? What's the signal?
He is trained to follow you. So he's going to get as close to the odor as he can, and if he can't get any closer, then he would alert by sitting. And then that would tell me, and you could tell after handling the dog for a while, you could tell the difference between a playful, I'm really interested in this thing over here, so I'm going to pull you along over here, then he catches the odor, and then he's just
all
raring to go. I mean, it's kind of interesting to watch, but it's like the slip and slide. So he would try to dig his paws into the tile floor. So he'd be slipping and sliding, and it would look like a cartoon if you ever remember like the Roadrunner with the wheels, or the legs spinning around and around. That's kind of what I referred to it as. Like, oh, well, he's got something because he's trying to get grip on the tile floor, which was kind of neat to watch him do.
What kind of dog was it?
He was a German Shepherd, full-blooded German Shepherd.
And what was his name?
His name is Sting.
Sting?
Yep. You can still see him at the Kenwood Town Center. He's still up there.
I was going to say, when there's a new officer, does Sting get transferred to the new officer then?
Yep. So he still has probably, let's see, on the 5th of July, he will be 4. So he'll have 4 or 5 more years after. They usually work on about 8 or 9 years,
So
depending on their health.
what's the training like? When do you start training, and when are they full time? When are they ready to go?
So they start training them about at 6 months. So about
Wow.
6 months. And then after that, then they go through a series of training for probably about a year. Then they start looking for a handler, or once somebody purchases the dog, then they start pairing them with a handler. And I was in training for 5 weeks to get paired with the dog, and then that last week we certified. So they complete blind searches. They hide stuff, and you have to search. We had to do. They said to certify you have to search buildings, bodies, and bags. So we did luggage, we did a building search, and then we did the person-borne stuff. So somebody that is actually carrying something
Right.
through a building, then that's the live search. So we had to do what they called a traverse, which you go zigzagging through a hallway back and forth past people, get the dog behind them as close as you can, and then we do a checkpoint. So it's the standard, people walk by, you walk the dog behind these people, and then turn around and you come back. And then when the dog goes off of that path toward that person, then you know that that person potentially has something.
We were recently, my wife and I and our daughter, we flew overseas and we flew back into New York. And there at the airport, they had a dog, and they had these fans set up in this little walkway as where the dog would just go back and forth. What's the purpose of the fans?
So the fans were probably blowing on you toward the dog.
Yeah, I guess it
So
was behind you.
what it's doing is it's probably, we never used the fans, and I've never heard of anybody using a fan, but the only thing that I can imagine having the experience with the dog is that it's trying to take the odor off of you and blow it toward the dog, so the dog catches it faster, and then tries to pick you out of the crowd. But that would almost defeat the purpose, because if I was doing an open area search, which is like out in an open field, like outside in the element, you have to, when you do the search, you have to test the wind and figure out which way the wind's going, and you have to do your path with the dog search into the wind. So the wind is always, you're always working into the wind, and the wind is always blowing toward the dog that you're using. So if the wind changes, then maybe your search pattern will change.
Right.
Or maybe you really have to get in tune with your dog. It's, you do learn real quick how your dog would react, and you definitely can see that change in behavior, that the dog is just, oh, okay, cool, we're in the field, we're doing this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden he's focused, and he's streamlining to a path, and he's gonna find it. And you'll see him what they call bracketing, where a dog will be close to a smell, but they'll keep going back and forth left and right trying to zero in on it, and then all of a sudden his nose will stop, and then he'll sit, and then he gets his toy. So that's all he's working for, is a toy.
Wow.
That's it. That's what motivates the dog to go to work every day, is that toy. He has his favorite toy, he loves the toy, and that's his paycheck.
If you look at my office, you would probably think I'm toy motivated also, because over the years you just accumulate little things, and I could be toy motivated. If like throw some Legos at me, or some action figures, Matchbox cars maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I do like a good set of Lego.
do you?
Yeah.
All right. Were you a big Lego kid growing up?
I wouldn't say a huge Lego kid, but I definitely had my fair share of Lego when I was a kid. I do have, which ones do I bought the little miniature architecture ones. So
Oh, yeah.
well, not even miniature. I even invested in some of the bigger ones. I have Buckingham Palace, and I have Buckingham Palace, and there's another one in England. Oh no, it's not even in England. It's the Louvre. It's in Paris. So,
we're getting
yeah.
into Tim's geography.
I do have a geography minor. Funny.
Do you
funny
really?
enough, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Criminal justice degree with a geography minor.
All right. So wait, back to the dogs. How long did you do this? And what's
So it was
what
about a
was
year
your
and a half.
background with that?
It was about a year and a half. Prior to being a canine handler with this company, I had worked security for that company. So I started working for this company in 2013, and I worked at the Kenwood Town Center starting out. In 2015, I got promoted to a security director. from there. And then I was a project manager, which I worked out of that corporate office that was based in Chicago. I traveled all over the country, trained and hired directors, did training classes, and I got tired of traveling. So I left that security company, changed gears completely, went to the airport, and I ran the shuttle bus operation, which is a complete left turn.
Right.
Got my commercial driver's license. I can drive a 40-foot bus. If anybody needs me to drive a 40-foot bus, I'm qualified.
Oh, cool. We could do a museum party bus.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting, especially the first time when I was learning how to drive the huge buses. The first time I put a 40-foot bus in reverse to back it into a parking space, it finally hit me that my bumper is 40 feet behind me. And my rearview mirror is going to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Because if you look in a rearview mirror, if you've ever paid attention in a bus, it has a rearview mirror, but it's pointless. Because most of the time, the controls for the doors or AC in the back or whatever are completely blocking the rearview mirror. So you can see absolutely nothing. You have to use your side mirrors.
Did you watch Speed at all to prep or train for that, or was that helpful?
I did
not.
How
accurate is that?
I wouldn't say it's very accurate.
Okay.
They could probably see a lot more in their rearview mirror than I could, but they didn't have the technology back then. I mean, when I put my bus in reverse, the camera came on, and the rearview mirror turned into a rearview camera. So I did have a little help. So I made it sound harder than it was, but still to wrap your mind around, okay, well, the bumper is 40 feet behind me, and then when I actually go for my test, I have to parallel park this thing. So I was given a parking spot that was slightly bigger than the bus itself to parallel park, and I only got 3 chances to park it without hitting the cones that were in front of me and behind me. And I was allowed to get out of the bus twice to check my maneuverability, and I didn't even need to get on my bus once.
Did you got it on the first try?
Yeah, I don't know how. It was lined up perfectly. I just went for it. The state trooper got out of the car. It was raining, so he was going to sit in his car while I parked my bus. And he didn't even get to his car door, and I honked the horn to let him know I was done, and he just gave me a thumbs up. So I don't think I could ever do it again. But
what? That's
I think I lucked out, but maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit. But
that's with any test. You just need to do it for that test, then you just jettison that knowledge.
That was after I had to do a complete walk around of the bus and explain all the operations of everything under the hood. I'm not a mechanic, but I had to say things like the water pump, the alternator, this, that, and the other are all belt driven. They're all secure and operating properly, and move on to the next thing. And I had to name like 27 different parts under the hood. Probably couldn't do this again today. I typed it all out on a piece of paper, and it ended up being 22 pages that I had to memorize.
Are you kidding me?
And I gave it to some of my employees that were going for the test at the time. I'm like, here's your study guide. This is exactly what you have to say. Memorize it, know where the things are. But it was kind of fun.
I always like to plan a Cincinnati Museum Center talent show to imagine what that would look like. Would you parallel park a bus for yours? What would your talent be? What would your entry be?
That could be a possibility. I have a hard time coming up with a talent for myself to do.
I would choose the bus for you then if I get to pick.
But maybe if I could talk to my friends at the airport, maybe they'd let me borrow a bus for the day. But yeah, the big buses were bus 12 and bus 13. So I took bus 13 for the test because why not, right?
Yeah, lucky 13.
Lucky 13, yeah.
What's the fear of number 13? Triskaidekaphobia or something? Mitch will edit that and he'll record it and just slot that in as my voice. So,
yeah,
but
isn't there also another phobia of very large words and it's like a 47-letter word? I don't remember.
Which feels like someone's messing with you.
Yeah,
it feels like the Latins. Who spoke Latin? Romans? Ancient Romans? Yeah, not the Greeks. They spoke Greek, right?
Pretty much everybody back then.
Well, I would
say
we're doing well right now. So you're at the airport. And then where'd you go?
Then I went back to the security company because my former boss at the time, when I was at the airport, called me and says, hey, we're starting a K-9 program. That company prior didn't have a K-9 program whatsoever. We always subcontracted it out to a different security company. But they finally were getting it off the ground, and I was one of the first 3 canine handlers that they hired for the program at that time. So was able to make some connections and get the OKs, and they were able to bring me back on. And I went back to that company. I was in armed security, so I had to do the private security handgun certification. So I had to go to the police academy and do the 20-hour class of, all these drills and shooting targets and getting certified on the semi-automatic pistol, which was pretty cool. And then that's the first time that I ever showed up for my first day at work, and they handed me a gun. Oh, here's your gun.
Well, here's your badge. Here's your gun.
Oh,
It's like the reverse of any
Yeah.
like old school cop film.
Here's your badge. Here's your gun.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, sign this paper. We're going to deduct the cost of the gun out of your paycheck. So I still have it because I bought it. So they made me put it in my name, obviously, for liability reasons. But when I left, since I purchased it from the company, I was able to keep it. So
Together, we've referenced 3 classic films: Speed,
yeah,
with your bus training, Police Academy,
yeah.
with police academy training, and do you know what the third one is?
Hold on. Turner and Hooch?
Yes! Oh my gosh, you got it! Yes, 100%.
One of my mom's favorite movies.
How realistic was that with your experience?
Sting, he was pretty mellow. He did not eat the interior of the vehicle.
Yeah.
One, he couldn't because the K9 vehicle, it was literally a steel cage that was built into the back of the vehicle. And it was all, state-of-the-art, high class. I could monitor the temperature of the vehicle while I was away from it. And if it got too hot, the car would call me and tell me that the car was getting too hot for the dog. If I ignored the phone, the horn would start honking, the sirens would go off on the car, all the windows in the car would roll down, and the fan would kick on. He had his own personal fan in the car pointed at him that was just for him. I had a brand new truck. That was the other thing they handed me. Here's your new car, here's your gun, and here's your badge. And oh yeah, here's your laptop. So they gave me all kinds of stuff, and they paid for the gas and service on the vehicle.
Wow, they're investing in you.
So they definitely invested in me. But it was pretty fun.
And Sting came home with you every night?
He lived with me. He had his own area at the house, and he was just like a pet dog at home. So,
wow.
He was a little rambunctious. When other people were around, I had to put him in the kennel. He only was mellow when there wasn't anybody there, but he was super excited when other people came around, and he was always interested. He was into everything.
Wow, that's incredible. Besides this experience, I've also heard you reference the aquarium.
Yes, I did work at the aquarium for a short time.
And Kings Island.
Yes, I worked at Kings Island for 7 seasons.
Did you?
Yeah.
Ride operator extraordinaire?
I was a ride operator, ride supervisor. I played with $22 million toys, as I like to call them. So I left. One of my first jobs was security at Newport on the Levee. That was my first security job ever. And I left there, and I went to Kings Island. And security at the time, since I was in college, it was my summer job / time for break, or maybe once a week, 1 weekend a month, I would come home and I would work and make some money just to hold the job. But then I decided I wanted to leave security. My degree is in criminal justice, and I took a left turn, and I was like, I think I'll work at Kings Island this summer. And my mom was like, why the heck are you going to do that? You took a huge pay cut to work there. And I told her, I said, listen, I like things that beep, I like buttons, and I like toys. So where else can you work to fulfill all of those things?
Like Sting, you were toy motivated too.
Yeah, well, at the time, yeah, buttons. Anything with buttons. When I was a kid, I would go to Walgreens, or we would go to Walgreens, and I was the kid that would walk down the toy aisle and hit every single button on every single toy and make the most obnoxious sounds.
Yeah.
Everybody knew I was coming, and, there were times that my mom probably had to tell me to put my hands in my pockets and not to touch anything because I was driving her up the wall. But, I was the kid that was always pushing the buttons.
All right. Well, speaking of pushing buttons, really great guy I worked out at Kings Island, Chad Showalter, probably hates us because anytime someone's worked at Kings Island, I want to prod them for the secrets. You were telling us once about kind of ride safety and how they test rides and make sure that they're safe and in good operating condition every day. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the rides are tested, I would say, at least 3 or 4 times before anybody even gets on them every day. So early in the morning, ride maintenance gets there. They run it through its cycles. They do its checks. They have the mechanics go through it. They have the electricians go through it. Then the ride operators get there, and then they have their own checklist that we have to go through. And if it's a roller coaster, I mean, I was on the Vortex for three and a half seasons. We purposely had to try to crash the trains into each other every morning. It was called the block test.
Without people on them, right?
Without
Yes.
people
Yeah.
on them, yeah, we didn't do that with people on them. So there's a section of each section of the roller coaster track is called what they call a block, and only one train's allowed to occupy that at a time. And if it gets to the end of one, the train will safely come to a stop to prevent a crash. So that's what we were essentially checking, was the safety sensors. They would actually activate and stop the train before proceeding into the next section of track where there was a train sitting.
Fun fact, that's also how the Duke Energy Holiday trains operate in Holiday Junction. Is similarly different runs of track, have signals so that two trains can't occupy it to keep the mini trains from derailing or crashing into each other. But
So that's
the
definitely
rides
on,
are a little
on,
more
on a lot smaller scale.
right,
I'm sure, yeah.
right, lot smaller scale, a lot lower stakes. Did you have a favorite ride at Kings Island?
It was the Vortex, actually.
Was it?
That was my all-time favorite ride, and then I actually got to be I was a head supervisor at that ride. I rode the front seat with Robbie Knievel.
Awesome.
The
That's
day
cool.
that he, do you remember when he jumped over all of the Coke Zero trucks in the parking lot?
No.
He beat his dad's record, I guess, in the late '70s, maybe early '80s. I'm probably wrong on the date, but it's sometime in that time frame. Evel Knievel jumped 14 Greyhound buses
Yes, that's right.
in the Kings Island parking lot. And then Robbie Knievel, when I worked there, so it's probably 2008, he jumped over the Coke Zero trucks in the parking lot. And before he did the stunt, he obviously got to walk around the park with security, and he came up the exit of the Vortex and he said, "Hey buddy, before I kill myself in your parking lot, can I ride your ride?" I'm like, "Yeah, one condition, I can ride with you." So he let me jump in the front seat with him, and
So you got him hyped up. You got him in the right mindset. You made it possible.
possibly made it possible, but I don't know. He probably knew what he was doing.
Man, are we past the age of stuntmen? Or has social media and stuff made being a stuntman so commonplace that the spectacle is gone, or what's going on with that? What are your thoughts, Tim? To you.
Yeah, you don't hear about them too much. They kind of like fade into the background, and I think they're all part of the quote unquote movie magic, maybe.
I just feel like there are too many people who have access to a cell phone, a GoPro, and motorized equipment that they just try this stuff like on their farms. And so
Well, that's how you get the stations like Fail Army.
yeah.
Yeah, like the not to plug another YouTube channel or a YouTube channel by any means, but I mean that's where you get all those epic fail videos.
Speaking of YouTube, we are on YouTube now. So if you're looking to catch up, or if YouTube is your preferred place to listen to podcasts, we're there. But if you had to pick a stunt that you were going to do, what would you do?
That's a hard decision because I'm a thrill seeker. I'd like to say, I'd probably jump out of something like
Yeah?
a plane or something. That'd be kind of fun.
Like jump out of a like tandem jump with a grizzly bear or something.
Well, maybe not a grizzly bear.
Like a panda. It could be some international relations.
Yeah, there you go.
thing.
Well, how about a panda?
I
Everybody likes pandas.
Animal lovers. I also love animals. I understand that that's probably not good for panda bears. This is just a hypothetical. But so we talked Kings Island. Speaking of animals, Newport Aquarium. You spent
Newport
some time
Aquarium.
there as well.
Yeah, I was the supervisor of the gift shop. So
Okay.
I didn't do anything with the animals, but I got some pretty cool stories. I got to hang out with, do you remember when Mighty Mike was there, the huge
alligator, right?
alligator that
Yeah.
was there? I was there on the day that he was delivered for the first time because he was there to begin with. He left for a little while and then he came back. But the first time he came down, or he was delivered to the aquarium, was actually my birthday, the year that he got there.
That was your gift.
Yeah, that was my gift. He was not a happy camper that day. I was walking through the hallway, through the back of house areas, and there's this huge 14-foot long, narrow wooden crate, and it says live animals on it. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that is. There wasn't anything in it because it was already open. And somebody had said, oh, that's Mighty Mike. I'm like, who's Mighty Mike? And then they said, you should go down to the alligator pen and take a look. Well, I go down there, and this thing is massive. I was trying to figure out how this giant alligator could fit in this large, or this narrow, tiny crate, because he was probably double the width when I saw him than the crate itself. So I don't know how he squeezed himself in there, or they squeezed him in there, or coaxed him to get in there. But I could tell why he wasn't very happy. I mean, I think he came from New Jersey, so it was a decent trip in that box.
Oh, but
at the time.
He had some Jersey Shore energy too, so
Yeah.
you know he was looking for a fight.
Oh yeah, of course. But they gave him a couple chickens, and he was happy.
Were you afraid of any of the animals, like alligators, sharks, snakes, any of those things?
No, not necessarily.
Really?
I got to hang out with the penguins. That was kind of fun. With the emperor penguins, I got to go into the enclosure and stand with them. It was kind of neat.
That's pretty cool.
They just kind of stand there and mind their own business. They don't really care if you're standing there or not.
So here, you talked about the wooden crate. Here, a lot of the animals are kind of transported in Tupperware containers or little igloo coolers, something like that. And I learned very early here, if you see someone carrying a Tupperware container or an igloo cooler down the hallway, turn around, because usually there was a snake or something in it. I do not mess with snakes. Do you like animals? Do you like snakes and all that?
Yeah, I
that
like
stuff,
animals.
or-
I mean, there's when I worked security at the levee, so it's kind of like right around the area of the aquarium. So it's kind of related. But they would have these performers there. So one of them would bring their Burmese python, which is huge snake, and they would let people take pictures with the Burmese python. And there was one day that he draped him over my neck, and I'm standing there holding this Burmese python, and I'm about 6 feet tall, and he's going from one side around my neck and back down to the other side. So it's about 12 or 13 feet long.
You went full Britney Spears with a photo?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Wow. You were fine with that. How
Yeah.
heavy was it?
He weighed probably about 40, 45 pounds. Big snake.
Wow. Okay. So
His name was King the snake.
I'm starting to think you're just making these names up off the top of your head. We went from Sting to King.
Well, I mean,
and-
yeah, they do kind of rhyme, but it's kind of ironic because I said King and I thought the same, like, wow, I'm making these up, aren't I? But no, really, my dog's name was Sting, and he's still around. And I'm not sure about King. I haven't seen him in probably a number of years.
I don't know what a snake's natural lifetime is. So all of this brings you here, Cincinnati Museum Center. What does the Senior Director of Public Safety and Security do? What's your day look like?
So day to day, I look out for the safety and security of all of our guests and employees here. So anything public safety related or safety related is under my umbrella. So anything with the fire system or CPR classes. I've recently renewed my CPR instructor card, so I am now a CPR instructor. I'll be getting that off the ground soon. I am responsible for key access cards, ID cards, cutting keys for the building if somebody doesn't have one, and I don't have an extra one. I'm the one that has to cut the key, which...
Do you just go into Lowe's and put it in the machine? And
No, it's a little more
just watch it?
complicated
Okay.
than that. It's... if you think about a very sophisticated hole punch.
Have you gotten lost in the building? I mean, because you're all over the place. I
Right.
mean, I've been here a little while. I've gotten to go to a lot of different areas. I was here through the restoration, which changed pathways and stuff's going on in places I would never find myself otherwise. But you are top to bottom, corner to corner, every single door. Have you gotten lost?
Less now than when I first started. I would say...
That's a diplomatic yes. But yeah.
So I would say probably once every other week I still get lost. That is down from when I first started, from 4 times a week. The 5th time or the 5th day when I would get lost every day, I would just spend the day in my office because I was tired of getting lost and I was tired of trying to find my way out because I would try to go somewhere but I know in my head where I want to go, but it's taking me like 45 minutes to get there. Because I thought it would be a great idea to go one way, but try to come back to the office a completely different way.
Sure,
So I
of
would learn
course.
this building. By far, this building is the most confusing place I've ever worked. They tell me they told me in orientation, take your phone, remember public safety's number. I'm public safety. So who am I going to call? I'm public safety.
Ghostbusters.
So yeah, exactly. But who am I going to call? My dispatchers who are going to laugh at me because the boss got lost in this building and they had to come find me. No, so the reason it took me so long is because I didn't want my team to know that I was lost in the building. So I would figure out my way out of my situation, which sometimes ended me going out an emergency exit outside and walking around the building. I ended up outside several times, but now I know how to give the emergency exit tour because I've been out every emergency exit of this building probably at least 3 times.
That's what I try to tell people. If you get lost, number one, try to find your way to the rotunda and you kind of reset, or number two, try to find your way outside, which is, depending on which door you come out, is a long way back to a door that you can get back into.
Unless
But
you're me and have master access with your ID and a key to every door.
I know you have.
Let me rub it in a little more.
You have the key. We got it.
The
All
key to
right.
the city. I mean, the rotunda.
They used to call it the gateway to the city. So, and in some ways you do. I got lost on my first day here during orientation. We were in this small room, no windows, filling out paperwork, going over the handbook and everything. Had a break, went to the bathroom, was pretty sure I knew which door to go back into, but some doors only open from one direction and they lock behind you. And this one locked behind me. And I was like, oh, no, I don't know. So I'm just kind of spinning in circles and finally just weaving through a hallway. I get back up to the rotunda and I said, okay, I know where to go from here, and went back down. And I go in, they were waiting on me. And they go, where were you? I got lost. I'm very sorry. And they go,
Well, at least
oh,
I'm
we'll
back
talk
now.
about that next. Yeah. Yeah. So,
It was a good segue for the orientation, though, right? You got back and they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that here in a second."
Yeah,
so
it
I'm glad you
was-
already did that.
it was helpful. I got the same message. Make sure you have your phone on you, or if you have a radio, have your radio with you so you can try to tell people where you are. But it's a big building. It's 500,000 square feet. I mean, ultimately spread across, 9 stories from the tip top of the rotunda all the way
Yeah.
to the lower level.
That was probably one of the things that amazed me at how tall this building actually is. I mean, yeah, you see it from the outside. Okay, well, you think the rotunda is just a bunch of open air, but no, there's actually floors,
Yeah.
and areas that people don't realize that are up there.
Do you have a favorite space in the museum off the beaten path?
I like the glass hallways in between the big glass window in the front and maybe the clock room is pretty cool. Not when it's hot outside because
Right.
it's like a greenhouse in between those 2 windows.
You feel like an ant
Yeah.
under a magnifying
Yep.
glass, right?
I mean, you never know. You might find some tropical flowers or some plants up there. Like a greenhouse.
Yeah.
You have maybe some citrus or tropical plants growing up
It's
there.
good use of the space.
Yeah.
When the building was under construction during the restoration, we took the clock out. All the guts of the clock came out of there. But I think when this happened, it was like August when that was going on. And I took a camera crew up there. I said, let's document this. This is going to be very cool. And this guy, it's very narrow, and the clock room itself is even smaller. And so guys just darting back and forth to make room for the
And
crew that's working in
The
there.
door
Just-
to get in there is really narrow as well.
Yeah,
The door
it's-
is like half the width of not even half a width, probably a third of a width of a regular door.
Yeah, it's super tiny, and this crew was just dripping sweat. And it's the same thing for any high steel tours where you're going all the way up and over the rotunda. People are always like, oh, I want to go up there. I've not done a tour. And I said, well, don't do it in the summer. Do it in the dead of winter because it is so hot up there.
Almost unbearable up there.
Yeah.
I mean, we still, my team has to go up there anytime we have a big rainstorm, and people don't realize that my team goes up there regularly to check for what else but roof leaks. I mean, it's an older building, so a 91-year-old building.
Yeah,
Potentially, I mean, yes, it's been restored, but we just want to double check that there are no roof leaks, just to make sure that no damage that could get any worse could be done, and we find out about it almost immediately. So that's another responsibility of my team, is to check for the safety and upkeep of the building as well, along with engineering. So we'll notify our engineering team if we find anything, document it, and report it. That way it can be addressed almost immediately.
you said it's 91 years old. Yes, it did go through a massive historic restoration, but the older a building gets, the more maintenance it is every day. And a building this size, there are a lot of spaces, there are a lot of joints, there are a lot of windows and all these things to look out for. So your team, are they doing rounds of the entire building? I mean, are they essentially walking in almost every space of the building every day?
Each shift of mine, they have a set of rounds that each shift completes every shift every day. So each area of this building is covered at least several times a day. I mean, there is somebody in each area of the building, whether you realize it or not, either walking by it or double checking things.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
24 hours
right?
a day, 7 days a week.
What is that like overnight? I mean, this has to be kind of a cool sort of, if you're afraid of the dark, kind of a creepy place.
It is kind of neat.
Big.
I can't tell you. Maybe I don't want to ruin it for everybody, but the dinosaurs do not run around at night when nobody's here. They do.
Not when you're watching.
Clearly not when I'm watching, because I'm the guy in charge of it all, so I can't ruin all the fun.
That's right.
But it's not like any other third shift place that I've worked, like a mall. There's nothing going on at the mall other than maybe construction every now and then. Overnight, but we are an active train station, so we still have the general public coming in the middle of the night to board and deboard a train. So we have to help with wayfinding, and we have to make sure that people get to and from their areas where they're going safely. So we have to make sure that, one, we're there watching to make sure that nobody's coming in here that isn't going to be boarding the train and has any ill intent to do anything to the building or anybody else.
Then sometimes you're getting people who are coming into Cincinnati for the first time, and it's 3 a.m. So sometimes it's just customer service of trying to help them find a taxi or kind of navigate what happens next.
Right, and then we also have those people that show up at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday when we're not open. I'm here to catch the train. Well, I'm sorry, sir. You're 12 hours early. What do you mean I'm 12 hours early? My ticket says 3 a.m. 3 a.m. And did you make sure you checked the day? Because if it says 3 a.m. on Wednesday, chances are you've already missed your train, because it's 3 p.m. on Wednesday. It was 12 hours ago. So trying to explain that to our Amtrak passengers, and they don't always take out the frustration on us, but I mean, we do get a lot of it because we're the front-facing. We are not Amtrak. I'm not Amtrak, but people look at my team as, well, you're here in the building, so I'm going to take out all my anger on you because you're the one that's here.
Sometimes, especially at those hours, you're the only one in the building.
So, and trying to keep those customers calm and trying to help them work through their frustrations and direct them toward the right contacts to talk to. I mean, unfortunately, our only go-to for our Amtrak passengers is, well, here's the 1-800 number. You can call that. There is no Amtrak representative that's here for you to actually speak with.
I've done that before. I booked a flight thinking I was going to have a really short layover, that I land at 7 and the next plane leaves at 8. So, boom, I'm not sitting around, and then realize I booked it for 8 a.m. the next day. And so you feel like you're just stranded in the airport overnight. What's unique about this building and this experience from places you've worked before, and some of the challenges and some of the unique benefits of it?
Well, this is a historic landmark. I've never worked in a historic landmark before. So, I mean, there are different rules for, I would say, construction. Clearly, construction is definitely, there's an extra long list of guidelines that have to be followed for construction purposes. You can't just, for example, if I want to put up a fire extinguisher bracket on said wall, I have to make sure, well, is this a historical wall? Because if it's a historical wall, you're not drilling through that wall.
Right.
What kind of wall is this? Was this original to the building? Was this X, Y, and Z? And then you have to go through the list, and then I have to get through a couple extra checks, maybe with the person that I report to, the vice president of facilities, and then maybe engineering knows. And then it takes a little longer. Something as simple as a fire extinguisher bracket could take 3 days to install while we research, well, are we allowed to put it here?
It's interesting you say that because you can, if you walk in the rotunda, you can see spots in the floor where, when Union Terminal was a shopping mall for a brief period, they just drilled straight in the floor and put their clothing racks and stuff in the rotunda. You see these little pock marks. You do appreciate that there is this care and concern for the building to maintain and protect it, but at the same time, how do you make sure that it is up to all those safety codes of modern buildings, but adapted for a historic structure?
Right. I mean, there's definitely a little more complication with some things, but I mean, it's all for the preservation of the building, which, I mean, this building, you look at the outside and you can immediately tell that it's a very unique building to work in. And I work in, my office is right outside the rotunda. So every day walking into work, I get to walk through the grand rotunda. I mean, I don't think anything can compare to, I mean, walking anywhere else. I mean, my previous job, the job that I left to come here, I parked in a loading dock next to a dumpster, walked past the dumpster and into the service corridor that was, concrete and not painted walls. It was a back of house area, so nobody got to see it. So, and then into the security office to check in. Definitely a lot different here, where I park my car and then work my way through the museums up to the rotunda and walk through the rotunda every day. So that's something unique that it never gets old.
It is true that even the back of house spaces here are unique. They're kind of fun and the historic nature of them. But you can also, there are so many different paths. Is there a quick way to get anywhere in this building? I mean, it feels like anytime you're going from point A to point B, you sit there and you run all the scenarios in your head, and you essentially just throw your hands up and say, "I'm just gonna start walking."
Funny you say I'm just going to start walking, because half the time when I have to go to a meeting, I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to get to this room? Well, you know what? I'm going to start walking, and wherever I end up, I'll just mosey my way there somehow. But yeah, I never really have a pre-planned route that I'm going to go. Just, it depends on, okay, are we open? Is a rotunda jam-packed with people? That's going to affect my decision, because my office is in the front of the rotunda. So anywhere I go, if we're open, I have to walk through the rotunda. Maybe I cut off to the side and go down a stairwell that's closer to my office, and then kind of come up through the back way around all of the crowd of people that's down there in the rotunda
out.
and then pop out somewhere else. I've definitely learned how to do that to get places a little faster. But yeah, I don't really ever have a pre-planned route.
It's tremendously fun building to be in when it's open, of course, but it's one of the perks of working here is being here when it's not open, and being here early in the morning, being here after close, being here on days we're not open, just to experience things kind of still, or things that are not on. You just get kind of just a different respect for it, and the rotunda feels different. Early in the morning, later in the evening, or when it's empty, you just have this weird moment of awe that makes you feel like you're back in the 30s.
Yeah, and if there's somebody, I mean, you've walked through the rotunda sometimes and you can swear somebody's talking right next to you, but they're not. They are clear on the other side of the world, and they're talking to somebody about something, but you can hear 100% of their conversation, like you are part of their conversation. Just the way the acoustics work in there, which it's like the whispering fountains, but it doesn't matter where you are in the rotunda. If it's quiet enough, it works everywhere.
Yeah, and depending on the time of day, it is also kind of eerie. I've been here early in the morning for media and stuff like that, 4 or 5 a.m., and you walk into the rotunda and it's dark, it's quiet, it's still, and then all of a sudden you hear whispers, and you start to think, okay, I hope I don't need to go anywhere else, because I'm freaked out right now. And then you look all the way over, and it's public safety and engineering having a conversation, like you said, in the corner, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was so scared.
It's not the dinosaur that's sneaking up behind me. or something like that.
It just depends on which one is sneaking up behind you.
Yeah.
Gallimimus, you're all good. That's
Yeah.
the only thing to do with you. The Torvosaurus, you got to watch out for.
Yeah, I could see that.
If you could trade roles with anyone in the museum for a day, who would you pick?
That's a hard one. I've been here a short time. I mean, I've met a lot of people and kind of what they do. I would say Erica Schultz is one because I like to build things.
Yeah.
Another one of my passions is building things. I originally, when I went to college, wanted to go into construction management, which is completely different than criminal justice.
Right.
But then I realized, I have to take structural engineering. Math is not my strong suit, so probably not best to put me in charge of constructing buildings and expecting them to stand up. But I do like to build things. I do like to work with my hands and tools and things like that. So if I had to trade, I would say I would go with Erica's job.
The exhibits team is always a popular answer because I think everyone wants to kind of be able to play around in the exhibits workshop, and rightfully so. But you made me jump all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. You had a minor in geography.
I did.
Why?
Well, the true answer, I could come up with some kind of crazy roundabout way of why I chose geography, but the true answer is chemistry and physics were not my strong suit. I found a way around every lab class that I possibly could without having to take that lab class, and it always defaulted to, I'll just take this geography class. It fits this requirement. So by the time it got to my senior year, I was looking at the different classes that I had, and it was like, I just pick up this one class. I have a geography minor. Well, there you go. I didn't have to do much work there. Extra work, that is. But what I tell people is I did kind of think about it a little bit. You can do crime mapping or crime forecasting. So one of my projects for one of my criminal justice classes was a crime mapping class. I took Lexington, Kentucky crime data of the year I graduated, which would have been 2008. And I forecasted the way the crime was trending through the city, and they ended up using it the following year.
Wow. That's awesome.
But yeah, I did heat maps of where crime was trending, and if they adjusted their patrol zones X, Y, and Z, maybe they would reduce crime in said areas, and yeah, it was pretty neat. So there are crime forecasters out there. There are people that actually go through all of that data and process it and forecast crime. So I wanted to do something with the mapping software because I like to make the maps. So
so you were in geography for the maps, not for like countries and borders or land formations, right? You were.
I mean, I enjoyed that part too, but it was mainly for the maps. I mean, I like making maps. I think in one of my other jobs that we didn't talk about, I was a 911 dispatcher for a little while. But in my
Wow, okay.
in my interview, I remember saying maps are fun, and that's kind of what made me stuck out. So in the
Maps are fun.
They are fun. But in my interview, I said maps were fun, and then that's how the person interviewing remembered me. And I was one of 3 people out of 3,000 candidates that got hired that time. But I know we didn't dive into what I did as a 911 dispatcher, but I did that for 9 months.
With your love of maps and your knowledge of the building, you should create a treasure map for Union Terminal.
Oh, that could be fun.
We'll put just like a little chest of something cool.
And I know a little bit about this building, where a particular hiding space could be. I could probably picture 1 or 2 of them in my head right now, but that could be fun.
I'm jazzed for it. All right, I have one last question before we kick you out of the Beat Laboratory. What would your walk-up song be in baseball?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Well, I mean, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, it would have to be Milli Vanilli of some sort.
Yes.
Because, I mean, after all, aren't I Quilly Manilli?
Quilly Manilli, you are.
So
for the
it
whole
would have
world
to be
to hear.
Milli Vanilli of some sort. I'll blame it on the rain. Why not?
Why not?
Why not? Blame it on the rain. It's your favorite song. We reference it a lot. So
I like that it's been pinned on me as my favorite song, but it's catchy. So I'll own it. That's fine. But I can't pick it as my walk-up song because it's
now it's mine.
Quilly Manilli. So thanks, Tim. I appreciate you spending some time with us. And thank you all for listening to Meanwhile at the Museum. Remember, if you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe. But more importantly, come see for yourself. Visit cincymuseum.org to see the latest reasons to visit. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to tell us how much you love the show, send us an email at meanwhile@cincymuseum.org. Thanks for listening.